boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Woo! Oh boy, did they hit a hornet's nest this past week. Welcome back, folks. It's 2021. Hopefully, we'll begin to learn but some new things, hopefully, because there's still some crazy things still going on. Welcome to this edition of Madman with the Show. Oh, man. So glad we took some time off because there was so many crazy things going on, and we're barely hitting the tip of most of what is going on. You know, I encourage you to go out there, check out some of our other YouTubers out there that has done a great job, especially Drunk 3PO, who I think I have to call him the YouTuber of the year to grab the freaking interview. God. The greatest interview of all time that you could say on there, and could change the face of interviewing once again. Bring back that old school public access interviews that we used to do many years ago. Just the straight lace, off the cuff, just talk about things, which is such a great thing when you see something like that. And I encourage you. It's 3 parts or 4 parts by now. It's hard to keep up on that. I'm still going through the second part right now myself because I'm watching so much now. I mean, like I said in another video, I just got through 2 seasons of ReZero. Did a season or 2 of a couple of other animes that I thoroughly really enjoyed. Beastars comes to mind, and The Great Pretender. I got to go through season 2. But what we got going on here is one of the greatest musicals of all time. Has been called racy, rapey, homophobic, and slut-shaming, and should be removed from the TVs and never to be shown again. But before we start, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video. Thank you for those who have done that. Thank you for those who will do that. And those of you who haven't done it yet and haven't considered it, maybe today's the day you'll do it. Because this story is the one is gonna get you today. Grease, the musical, has been criticized massively online by the small little percenters that just basically, they're not musical fans. They never liked anything from that era. They don't understand that era. They don't understand that basically things are made. They're made according to what is going on to the era. Whether they agree with it or not, it was a part of the time period. I mean, if you do a movie about World War II and you have people dying, and they say, well, people shouldn't die in a movie like this. I said, but it's war. Do you understand? You know, things like this happen. You know, you have many things that have happened throughout the eras, throughout the decades. And you look at how things are perceived today than from past, and people chastise it. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Yeah, okay, things happened. But that's things happen. You can't, and I said this in another video, things are not resolved in a Brady Bunch moment of 30 minutes. Things are not sunshines and flowers and everything is done and everybody's happy. But on occasion you get something that, hey, listen, the end of the movie might end up happy or it might end up sad. You know? Goes to tell, you know, if you ever saw the ending of The Last American Virgin, which pissed the hell out of a lot of people, including myself, who paid to see that movie. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But then you had a movie like this, which is 70s musical, which, you know, this was something that was on stage on Broadway, in the UK, in the US, was a hit. Then it went and it became a movie, and it starred John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John. It was a great cast. And it was a great movie. It had a great soundtrack for it. I still have it on vinyl. Yeah, that's right. Zane here loved Grease and has it on vinyl. Both the Broadway musical and the movie itself. Let's read this on. This is from the Daily Mail. It was once the highest grossing film of the 1970s and delighted audiences since, and it still does. I know so many girls, so many women, some guys that they did enjoy this film. But now the hit musical Grease has become the largest target of woke critics who have condemned it for racism, sexism, homophobia, and slut shaming. Outraged detractors have called the story of Sandy and Danny's roller coaster high school romance to be canceled and never shown on TV again. I can't remember the last time it was shown. I guess they just shown it here for the first time in a while. When BBC One screened the movie on Boxer Day, 42 years after its cinema release, it's been over 40 years. Youngsters took to social media and labeled it rapey and misogyny for showing how straight-laced Sandy, played by Olivia Newton-John, transformed herself into a vamp to bag the man of regimes, Danny Zuko, played by John Travolta. Didn't understand the movie. In the film's final scenes, student Sandy ditches her good girl image for skin-tight PVC trousers and take up smoking so she can claim to impress Danny. Now, if you notice, she wasn't really smoking. She just pretended to smoke on there because the way she was if you see the scene where they started singing and the way she tosses the cigarette, it's sort of like she just flings it in a weird way. Another furious viewer commented, "Grease sucks on so many levels and the message is pure misogyny." A third user agrees, saying Grease is just the most sexist piece of bleep that you've ever seen. One scene caused the particular offense to youthful viewers when Pootsy, one of Danny's friends in the T-Birds, positioned himself on the floor to look up the skirts of two female students at fictional Rydell High School. Okay. 1950s. Okay. Guys like this did do things like this. He joked around. Infamously, and I don't hear this yet, and it probably will be on there, if you've never seen Animal House, the scenes where Belushi does something up to this nature. Especially the one where he climbs up to the girl's dorm room with the ladder and he's trying to peek in as they're undressing. Not to say it doesn't happen. It happens. Is it right? Is it wrong? Things we talk about to the situation. It's never pulled that he was right in doing it, but it happens. Things like this happens. They make it, like I've said once before, they think it's the Brady Bunch. They think things don't happen like this. It's 30 minutes. Marsha's never gotten pregnant. Jan's never gotten pregnant. God forbid if Cindy ever got pregnant. Other viewers complained about the lyrics. Did she put up a fight in the hit song Summer Nights when Danny describes seducing Sandy? So it turns out Grease is actually pretty rapey. One wrote, aghast viewer, while another said misogyny is a sexist and a bit rapey. It's not the understanding. It's the same thing when you go back the song Baby It's Cold Outside. And that's the misconception people have with the song on how people equated themselves back then as far as relationships. So did she resist your charms? He was being charming, she was being like, well, I don't know. I said, oh, come on, These are things that happened. And most people misconstrue it being rape. And it's not rape. It was basically two people that were digging themselves, they like each other and stuff like that. And friends going like, hey, listen, you met a good-looking woman while you were on summer vacation. Did she resist a bit? Did she, what happened? These are things that are always in discussion. This is discussion between people all the time. These days they consider it rapey. They consider it, misogyny and stuff like that. Sensitive viewers also target the female characters for criticism. Rizzo was accused of being bullied when she was ridiculed Sandy's good-look girl image, and she says, "Look at me, I'm Sandra Dee," in front of her friends in the Pink Lady gang at the slumber party. It's an iconic song. If you didn't understand it, then you'll never understand it. Others were angry that Rizzo was slut-shamed for sleeping with various men, particularly when she had sex with T-Bird Kanucky without a condom. Happened in the 50s. There were a lot. If I tell you, the pregnancies that happened in that time period, it happened. It did happen. And this is before, Roe versus Wade, After thinking she might be pregnant, Rizzo was outraced promoting the character as being played by Stockard Channing to sing about the reaction. There are worse things I could do than to go with a boy or two. The Snowflakes were also unimpressed with Vince Vaughn saying the radio announcer who hosted the dance off at Rydell High as characters flirted with Pink Lady Marty and told the dancers there were no same-sex couples. It's 1950s, folks. 1950s. It's about 40 years before the lesbian gay revolutions on there. It was still pretty much taboo. And this was television. They were on television. They were on something like a version of American Bandstand. If you remember the movie Hairspray, which basically they had segregation. They dealt with segregation in the movie in both films, and you saw that they had a Black Day, which they had their version where it was just mostly black people dancing, and then they had every other day was all white people. And that was because the way television was back then. There were a lot of things people don't realize is that they have to look. Things were different, and they were beginning to change. Another part of this, which is coming up very soon, it's you have to think to what was going on in that era. Things were beginning to change. Yeah, these were hard times. Vietnam was around the corner. We just came out of World War II. We were going into Vietnam and Korea. We're in Korea at this point, I believe. No, not in Greece. That's late 50s. Early 50s was Korea. And you have situations where we're in between wars, one war after another, World War II, Korea, and then Vietnam, and the world was changing. See, I grew up late 60s. My cousin's husband, he came back from Korea during the Vietnam War era, and I remember that, growing up on that. There was a lot of things. You had the gas crisis. Did you know we had, those days where we had blackouts and you saw those long lines for gases and stuff like that? We had that problem on a daily basis. Even in odd days. You'll hear people from my time. If you're old enough to remember from the, I'm in my mid-50s, coming up to my mid-50s. If you had an odd or even number on your car, you only were able to fill up with gas on certain days, and you were there for hours. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's the Cheech and Chong movie. I believe it's the second one, if I'm not mistaken. They show a gas line in that era. Where you see the long line, and a couple other movies that do it also. But you had long lines on there, and then of course what came across was the coup in Iran and all that, the hostages and stuff like that in the latter half of the 70s. Yeah, there was so much on there, and the technology was changing on top of that too. Computers were starting to come in, the VHS machine was starting to come in, cable. There was so much that was starting to change by the time we got to the 70s. In the 50s, you didn't have much. There were a lot of stuff that was going on, and people don't realize, like it says here, the film, after all, was set in 1958, 45 years before homosexuality was universally decriminalized across the United States. 45 years. And you're complaining about that it's not in the film? They're on national television. You could not have it. Plain and simple. Nevertheless, the glaring lack of LGBT awareness angered one Twitter user who complained, all couples must be boy-girl? Well, Greece, shove it your homophobia. See, there again, you don't know your history. Another simply wrote, Greek was the peak of homophobia. It's funny. The lack of non-white faces in the cast angered some. Okay. Also remember, California at that time, they just remove those laws that kept the schools segregated in the early part of the latter part of the 40s into the 50s. So schools were beginning to admit on there. Now there is one character, Cha Cha, and I believe she's Spanish, that she's in this movie as well. And okay, there's one guy in Sha Na Na that basically is black in there. So you can't say that they didn't hire anybody. As far as the main characters goes in the school, like I said, it's California 1958. One went so far to question the broadcast's decision to air the film and express surprise that it was shown without a disclaimer. They should be never with a disclaimer. It's a movie, 1950s. Okay? Let me tell you something. If you go back and look at a lot of the Criterion films, take a look at what their subject matter is on a lot of those films. Peter Lorre and M, about child abuse on there. There's another one. What was that movie? I think was it a Bette Davis film? I'm trying to remember on there. Of Human Bondage, I think it was called. Yeah, it was a movie. It was the pre-code era with It was Bette Davis. And it was about obsession and stuff. It's a good movie, but 1934, and Bette Davis is callous and manipulative in this, and it's just people would freak out on that. It's all on that. Then of course there's Sophia Loren, Two Women, based on that it's about the war during the war, Second World War, and basically one of the characters is raped in the movie itself. It's part of the whole plot line of the movie, of the despair and stuff like that. And the people say, like, you didn't see that back then. Yeah, you did. There were plenty of these kind of movies, and then you go back to see something like Grease, and you say, like, oh, you have this and you have that, but that is part of the period. These were stories of that period. It's, you're always going to have stories like that. Another added, watched Grease on BBC, surprised they let it go full white people. See, that's stupidity when they talk about that. When Grease was released in the 1978, film censors gave it an A rating, the equivalent to today's PG, commenting only on some of the near-knuckle language. Yeah, it still carries a PG rating. If it came out today, it would still have a PG rating. It has a warning of frequent mild sex references and mild language, and it was very mild. Very tame compared to a lot of other stuff. Miss Newton-John had previously dismissed claims of sexism, saying it's a movie and a fun story, I've never taken it too seriously. You have many different musicals out there, and I think there's a new version of West Side Story coming. I'm waiting for them to hit on that one. I'm really waiting to hit on that one and call it racist. Because basically, it's sort of West Side Story is like a Romeo and Juliet, and you can call this also Grease a Romeo and Juliet story as well. About two people from two different worlds that basically, technically, those worlds wouldn't agree with each other in certain time periods, and they eventually were able to get together and find love. And no matter what you think of, because she changed, she dolled herself up. One of the actresses went on Good Morning America and said, listen, hey, that's the first makeover, you can say. That's really, truly the first makeover because, she was a plain girl. She's on there. And it wasn't that he wasn't, attractive to her. He was attracted to her. But it was that they basically just didn't click along well with everybody. And this was a point where basically you had a lot of people separate. You have that show, that geek show that was made many years ago, Freaks and Geeks, and the way they were treated and stuff like that on that TV series. And you see that a lot. You saw that a lot. Revenge of the Nerds. You see that. Animal House. There's so many movies in those eras that basically things were never simple. Things weren't simple. The Lie was some of the TV series. when you watch Brady Bunch, whether you watch any of the shows, any really true shows, when we started getting into the 80s, that's when we started to change and the subject matters became more relevant to the nature and was able to be resolved to the situation on there. I mean, comes to mind that episode about the pedophile on Different Strokes, if you recall that. That was a very strong episode. If you haven't seen that episode, it's kind of frightening in certain ways. But when you see these people that they criticize movies like this, it's the same people. And a lot of them use bots. And I say this out, and you could tell, because the way you tell, it's the same words, the same lingo, the languaging that's always around. So you have Grease's critics. You have people that don't like it, and that's okay. There are people out there that don't like Grease. It's okay to not like Grease. But when you have people like this that just detail after detail after detailing a movie that says, well, it has this, it has that, it has that, you've become the guy on the Twilight Zone, where basically he's calling companies and manufacturers saying, listen, you know, you got this guy who works for you. Yeah, he's a communist, and I think you should fire him. And if you don't, I'm just going to literally make your life a living hell. This is the thoughts that you have. You think that basically Twitter, you know, people say it's because Twitter, because of Twitter that this started. No, this was a long time. People were doing this for a long time. It's just now that we're more open as far as the internet. You know, we're able to get out more as far as the voices. You're seeing these people come out of the woodworks. And it's always going to be this way. It's always going to be this way with these people. You know, the only thing you could do is just don't pay attention to them. Let them cry and cry and cry and cry. They'll cry themselves out. Because if you bend to them, I'm talking to you, HBO. I'm talking to you, Netflix. I'm talking to every other company that's done this, including those in the UK as well. You can't bend to the knee. You can't add a disclaimer at the beginning of every movie. You can't put a person to talk 5 minutes on the spoils of racism in the Civil War. It's a movie. It's a book. It's a tale that was written a long time ago. You know, I saw Goonies had one on there. Goonies, Aliens, Back to the Future had that little piece edited out, that ooh la la section. Why would you cut that out of the movie? There was nothing in it. For that time period, yes, it would be very racy, that little nude shot, but not today. Today, that's a Sears catalog. Or what used to be called a Sears catalog. Oh, boy, I tell you, this is just some fun that we go through. So, comment below. You tell me, how do you feel about this? Do you agree with these Twitter mobs? Or do you just love Grease? Are you a big fan of Grease? You'll always watch it. Do you have all the DVD cuts and stuff like that? There are people out there. I think I have it on. Actually, my mother's the one that has it right now. She has the VHS version of Grease right now. And remember, this was a Broadway show. This was a Broadway show. It was a hit Broadway show, shown around the world. And still, some high schools and colleges, they do this performance on occasion. You know, I'm just waiting. Like I said, West Side Story, Les Mis, what they do with Les Mis and Phantom of the Opera, so many others that they, you know, Little Shop of Horrors. Once again, comment below. Hit that subscription. Hit that like. Hit that notification bell. Jay, what do we do now? Share this video. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one. Have a good weekend again. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye now.